Tommy Jaggi of Fansided here with NFL expert Marcus Mosher to talk about Week 12 around the NFL. This is the Stacking the Box No Huddle Show for all of your football content. Make sure you're joining us weekly here on Stacking the Box. We've got a lot to talk about today, Marcus. Your Dallas Cowboys came back against the Philadelphia Eagles. There were some egregious quarterback performances around the NFL this week. One that was spectacular that I want to talk about as well. We're going to talk about Shedeur Sanders' first NFL start. But first, let's talk, Marcus, about your Cowboys upsetting the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, the Eagles just blew that 21-0 lead. Looks like potentially the best team in the league is going to run away with yet another one. And then the Cowboys come fighting back. I mean, should we be concerned about the Eagles at this point? I mean, their point differential, they're plus 30, but I mean, at this point of the season, should they be a little bit higher than that if we're talking about them as the league's best team?
I have really mixed feelings on this because in one sense, all the contenders that they've played this year in the NFC, the Rams, the Lions, the Packers, they've beaten them all, right? And so I have a hard time thinking that anybody's going to go into Philadelphia and beat them. But they're also not a perfect team, right? It's not like they're unbeatable either. They do have some weaknesses, and if you have the right roster and the right quarterback, you can expose them. And what's funny about this game, Tommy, is that you mentioned the Cowboys got down into a big hole. And most of it was just Dallas doing stupid things rather than like Philadelphia making great plays, like Dallas lining up offsides on a third down. They got off the field. Dallas running into the punter. The Cowboys fumbled. Kevontae Turpin ran into the back of his own offensive lineman and fumbled the ball. CeeDee Lamb had 4 drops in this game. It's a lot of self-inflicted things that Dallas did, and yet the Cowboys were able to overcome it. So I don't know if that says more about the Cowboys at this stage or the Eagles. I still trust Philadelphia, but maybe I don't feel quite as good about them as I did a week ago.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talked about them last week, and I was saying that the Eagles are a team that typically, if they have the lead on you, that's when they thrive. That's when they can just play their style of offense. They can run the football. Jalen Hurts can take off and run. They can run their tush pushes 100 times a game. But this situation was interesting because you had a 3 touchdown lead and you ended up blowing it kind of in un-Eagles-like fashion. I just don't know what to make of this team anymore. I really don't. They did beat those good teams. They all came in 1-score games. And so if those flip the other way around, you're probably not talking about the Eagles in the same light right now. They're 8th in DVOA. I think they're right around the same mark in point differential. I think they are a good team, but I don't know if they're an elite team other than what we see on paper. Like, they've obviously got tremendous talent. I just don't know how you let something like this happen. And again, these divisional games are hard fought. Credit Dak Prescott, credit George Pickens, who's been phenomenal the past 2 weeks for Dallas. But how do the Eagles let this happen? It's just hard to make sense of.
Well, and big picture, right? One of the reasons why the Cowboys have made the 2 trades, trading away Micah Parsons and trading for Quinnen Williams, is because they thought that was a better way to match up with the top team in your division. And this goes back to like Bill Polian and the Colts, where you need to be able to beat your teams in your division before you worry about anything else. So if you remember like those early 2000 teams like the Jaguars and the Texans, they all had great defensive lines because they were trying to match up with Peyton Manning, right? They were trying to figure out ways to beat them. And the Cowboys felt like, as great as Micah Parsons is, the Eagles are a team that's built on their offensive line and their ability to run the ball. So the Cowboys have reinvested the picks that they got from Micah Parsons into defensive tackles with like Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams. And Philadelphia could not move the ball on them in this game. In their final 8 possessions, 107 yards. That's like 13 and a half yards per drive. They never got past the Cowboys' 40-yard line from the 11-minute mark on in the second quarter. And it's really because they couldn't run the ball. Like, Philadelphia had almost no success running the ball in this game. That's not going to be the case for them against every opponent. Saquon's going to have big games, but I do think Dallas is just uniquely situated to match up with Philadelphia. Again, what does that mean long-term for Dallas and Philadelphia? I don't know. It's just a bad matchup for the Eagles.
And maybe these moves by Dallas are looking wise at this point. You talked about how you need to beat the teams in your own division first. Sure, there are 3 wild card spots per conference, but it's so rare to see those teams end up going through the playoff bracket from the bottom up, not having home field advantage. It starts with your division, and Dallas understands that. And so credit them for understanding that. And they did an awesome job on Saquon Barkley, had 10 carries for 22 yards in this game. They kept the running game in check, just 63 yards on the ground. That's with Barkley and Hurts, who we know what he can do, especially just running straight forward through your offensive line. I thought Cowboys played them as well as you could, particularly in the second half. Things went awesome for them, held a shutout to the Eagles in the second half. And I think Cowboys played the Eagles terrific in both games this year, the season opener and this one here. But the question becomes, can you trust the Eagles now? Now that the Eagles have crumbled in some of these situations, they've lost to inferior opponents this season. Not to say that Dallas isn't turning things around at this point, but what do you make of them overall? Should they still be the favorites in the NFC?
Probably, because I don't see anybody going into Philadelphia once we get to January and beating them in bad weather. They still have the tiebreaker over the Rams after beating them early in the season. And the Eagles' schedule is just a lot easier than what the Rams is going forward. I have a hard time seeing Philadelphia have more than like 4 losses, maybe 5 losses. But if you get to 12-5, you're probably going to be the 1 seed. I'm just going to lean on the Eagles' talent here. I know it hasn't always looked great, but they are loaded on both sides of the ball. They're built for playoff football. They're built to run the ball and not turn the ball over. I think the Rams are becoming their greatest challenger. But again, the Rams have really struggled to close out these games against the Eagles, whether it was this year, last year, or in previous iterations. So again, I don't feel as great about Philadelphia as I did a week ago, but I still think they should be the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year.
Let's keep it in the NFC and talk about 2 other teams that at least we thought both of them were going to be contenders. Now it looks like one of them is not. The other clearly is. That is the Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What's going on here? Like we have the whole Baker Mayfield shoulder injury. I mean, he just did not look the same in this game, but the Buccaneers have now lost 3 straight games against good opponents, mind you, the Patriots, Bills, and Rams, but they just did not look like a good team in this game at all. They allowed 31 first half points alone. And then the Rams were basically just able to hit cruise control from that point on. They had such a big lead going into the second half. Baker Mayfield was not the same. 9 of 19 for 41 yards. That's 2.2 yards an attempt, a 32 passer rating in this game. And he was sacked twice in the first half before exiting the game with that shoulder. Marcus, what is Baker's shoulder injury? Do we have an update on that? And what do you just make of this Buccaneers team?
Yeah, so he has a strained left shoulder. It sounds like there's a chance he's actually going to be able to play this week. If it's not this week, he'll be back for the Saints game on December 7th. And we should mention Tampa Bay is 6-5 right now. They are 1 game over the Panthers in the division. Now they have both those games remaining against Carolina. Probably how those games shake out will decide this division. Tampa Bay's schedule the rest of the way is easy. Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, Panthers. Like they're going to stack up some wins here. I think the thing, Tommy, that I'm more interested in long-term with Tampa Bay is that it's just so clear that they're a good team, but they're not a great team. And when they play teams like the Rams, they got blown out. When they played Buffalo 2 weeks ago, they gave up 44 points. They played the Patriots in Tampa Bay, and they lost that game. They played the Lions a couple of weeks ago. They got blown out in that game. They're just not up to par with the real contenders in the NFC or the AFC for that matter. And I think Tampa Bay has got a really interesting decision coming up because Baker Mayfield's contract ends at the end of the 2026 season, which means that we're going to be going into this offseason with him needing a contract. We know that teams don't like to keep quarterbacks like in lame duck years. They like to give them the extension. Right now, Baker Mayfield is the 19th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. If you're Tampa Bay, I know he's fun. I know he puts up big stats. But are you making Baker Mayfield like the 4th or 5th highest paid quarterback in the league, given where this roster is and kind of how he's put up big numbers? He's entertaining, but is he the guy to kind of get you over the hump?
I mean, that's a great question. I think it's entirely fair too, because we are watching these quarterbacks who are quite frankly overpaid right now. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, what in the world? Brock Purdy, you're giving these guys 50 plus million a year, and they're not those needle movers that you need them to be. Does Baker fall in that category? I certainly think he's better. Marcus, we had this conversation a month ago. We're talking about Baker as a potential MVP this year. And all of a sudden, you lose these big games to big opponents. You lost against the Eagles, the Lions, Patriots, Bills, and Rams. All of the best opponents you played outside of the Seahawks, which Baker played phenomenally in that game. You've lost every other big game you've played in this year. That's telling in a sense, but of course their defense isn't up to snuff at times either. And so,
but that's the point. Like if you're paying Baker, if he goes from being the 19th highest paid quarterback in the league to the 7th, even, you're going to be losing. You're going to have to sacrifice some talent on defense. Is it worth doing that, or should you maybe? I wrote an article for the Pewter Plank for Fansided about kind of this decision that Tampa Bay has. And I've come to the conclusion that I think Baker Mayfield is a floor-raising quarterback. You bring him into your organization when you just need stable quarterback play. And that's what he's done for Tampa Bay over the last 3 years. Like he's made Tampa Bay relevant. They do really well in the division. They win 9 games every year. I think they've been 9-8 or 10-7 every year that he's been there. They're probably going to be 10-7 this year. But I don't know if he's the ceiling-raising kind of quarterback that can get you past round 1 of the playoffs. And I think Tampa's got a really tough decision they've got to make. And I would not want to be in that situation at all. Because he's so loved by that fan base and he's so entertaining. To move on from him would take a lot of stones. And I don't know if I could do that.
You might be right. I think floor raiser is fair, but I would add to that and say floor raiser with an it factor. I still think there's something about Baker Mayfield's game. We saw it 2 years ago against the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs. Is he? I mean, in a sense, Marcus, I think that he's this team. I think he's this team in many ways. What are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers without Baker Mayfield right now?
Probably a 4 or 5 win team. And I think the problem is how valuable is it going from a 4-win team to a 9-win team? And I think for some organizations, being competent and competitive every year does have a lot of value. But if you're a franchise like Tampa Bay that's got multiple Super Bowl wins with different quarterbacks, you want to be the team that's holding the Lombardi Trophy. And maybe it's time to consider trading him this offseason because you could get a big compensation. I do think there's some teams out there that have more championship caliber rosters that are just missing that quarterback. That's not Tampa Bay right now. And I think one of the most damning stats for Baker is since he's joined Tampa Bay, they are 1-9 in primetime games with Mayfield under center. And he's got a 6.0 yards per passing attempt, which is atrocious. Yeah. And this has kind of been the thing with Baker, whether you go back to Cleveland or now it's time with Tampa, is you can look great against some of these bad teams. I think he's like 24-4 in the division, right? But you play these good teams and all of a sudden you're not able to go toe-to-toe. With Baker Mayfield going into his age, I think it would be 31 season or age 32 season when his new contract kicks in. Is that suddenly going to get better? I don't know.
And you might be right. Maybe the Buccaneers are in a state right now where it's time. We've had our run. It's time to tear it back down to the studs and start over again. We'll see where they go from here, but definitely a warranted question. Should he get that contract? All right. You're listening to Stacking the Box, where NFL fans come to talk, celebrate, and debate. For more coverage, hit up fansided.com, powered by the passionate fans at Fansided. This is Stacking the Box, the No Huddle Show. Marcus, let's talk about the Bears beating my Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 12. Can't say I'm surprised by it. We saw Mason Rudolph start over Aaron Rodgers. Some fans, I think, were kind of hoping that he would be able to offer a spark. That didn't happen. Passing charts couldn't have been more different in this game. Everything for Pittsburgh, either at the line, behind the line of scrimmage, outside the numbers, nothing over the middle of the field. I think there was 2 passes over the middle of the field for Mason Rudolph that were beyond 8 yards. Caleb Williams, the exact opposite. A cluster of passes. The vast majority of his passes came over the middle of the field. Credit Ben Johnson. Even when Caleb wasn't accurate in this game, and we saw on a lot of those slants, pass sailed on him, passes behind. He stuck with it. He ended up having a 3-touchdown performance and put up 31 points. in the win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're now 8-3. Are they a legitimate contender? We've talked about this team, and we talked about kind of the lesser than contending teams they beat up on so far this season. I don't know if I would say the Steelers are one of their impressive wins either, based on now them falling to 6-5. Do we think that the Bears are contenders yet?
Kind of. So last week we talked about the Bears and we said, hey, if they win this game against the Steelers, we should start to take them seriously. And I actually thought this was a really good game for Chicago in the sense that a lot went wrong for them, right? Like Caleb Williams got sacked in the end zone by TJ Watt, and the Steelers scored a touchdown. Usually when those things happen, you don't win these games. Pittsburgh ran a fake punt down to the 1 yard line for basically a touchdown. You don't win those games when that happens. They were without at 1.4 linebackers, their top three corners, Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, and then Tyreek Stevenson, all were out with this game with injuries. Tyreek Stevenson left during the game. And yet you found a way to win. And that's what the good teams do is when you play your C+ game, can you still find a way to win? Caleb was off. Like this was not Caleb's best game. He missed a lot of throws over the middle of the field, but he made enough to keep them in this game. And they controlled the game for the most part in the second half. It's honestly a surprise that they didn't win by more. I don't know if they're up to, the Eagles or the Rams, but I do think they're a playoff team, and I do think they're a team that I would not want to have to play like in round one because Ben Johnson, the head coach and the offensive coordinator, and Dennis Allen, their defensive coordinator, there is a really, really talented group that I think does have some firepower here.
I like this Bears team a lot. And the conversation we've had multiple times, Marcus, are they there yet? And maybe they are. Maybe they're getting there a lot faster than we thought they would. I didn't think they would be 8-3 starting off. You look at their own division, the NFC North, that they have to go up against with the Lions and the Packers, and they're still in pole position to win the division. And so if they're able to do that in Ben Johnson's first year, what can they do down the line? I think that it's a very encouraging outlook. Maybe one of the most encouraging in the NFL this season. And what do they have? They have all 8 of their wins now in the last 9 games. They've been hot. They've been hot as any team.
Yeah, and I still think they're winning a lot of these close games and not blowing out a ton of opponents, but that's okay. I think this is the Bears team that's learning how to win ugly, and that's a big step for these contending teams, is figuring out a way to just grind out these wins even when everything is going wrong. I thought that was an impressive win. Let's talk about your Steelers for a little bit because they were underdogs on the road against Chicago. It turned out to be a 3-point game, which is exactly what odds makers put it at. Pittsburgh is now 6-5 on the season with a game against Buffalo this week coming up at home. What's kind of the state of the franchise with the Steelers? Because this was a team that had a big lead in the AFC North in the first 2 months, and now they're tied with the Ravens, going into week 13.
Yeah, you want to talk about a fan base that just is void of hope right now. And you normally don't say that about teams that perennially get to 9 or 10 wins, but that's just how it feels to be a Steelers fan right now. You had pole position. You started the season off 4-1. The Ravens started the season off 1-3. Lamar Jackson was hurt. Joe Burrow was hurt, still is hurt, and is about to come back just now. And somehow you squander all of these opportunities. They lost after the Browns win, they lost 3 of their next 4 games, including a couple ugly, embarrassing primetime losses. They won 1 of their last 2. I mean, this just not a very good football team. They're not a very good football team. They're not very well coached right now. I think they've got some talent issues. They've got receiver issues. The fact that the Bears were missing all 3 linebackers and you threw 2 passes over the middle of the field, that's probably not a very good sign that you're exploiting the other team's weakness. They're in a state of disarray. And I think that fans are indeed ready for change, Marcus. We'll talk about Steelers and Ravens in just a second. I want to go back to the Bears just one more second here, because there's no question that they've had the easiest stretch of their schedule so far. In fact, the stretch that they're coming off of in the games that we just talked about, the winning 8 of their 9 last games, Cowboys, Raiders, Commanders, Saints, Bengals, Giants, Vikings, Steelers. Those are their wins. Their only loss in that stretch came against the Baltimore Ravens, who are now 6-5 and lead the AFC North. Here's what they have coming up: at Philadelphia, at Green Bay. Then you get a game against the Browns, another game against the Packers, on the road against the 49ers, and then home against the Lions to end the season. That is the stretch that will make or break this team. It will tell if they are a contender for sure.
It's not easy. I mean, they probably need to get 3 wins out of that group. And their most important games are against Green Bay. If they split against Green Bay, they'll actually be in really good shape. Easier said than done. This is a very beat up football team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. If they can get Johnson and Gordon back, maybe stabilize that secondary a little bit, they'll have a chance. But we should say Dennis Allen, I know this defense is not performing like at an elite level or anything like that, but it seems like they're just getting these turnovers in timely situations. Nashawn Wright, who is reunited with his former defensive back coach, and Al Harris, leads the league in interceptions. He could have had 2 on Sunday. It just feels like a team that's playing with a lot of confidence. And sometimes, Tommy, that matters more than talent. And that's what the Bears are doing right now.
Agreed, Marcus. Let's stay here and talk about the Steelers and the Ravens and the outlook in the AFC North. This is a bad division. All of a sudden, like this AFC North that was once threatening looks like anything but right now. The Steelers and Ravens are knotted at 6-5 apiece. The Ravens actually leapfrog Pittsburgh in the standings. They hold pole position of that division. They control their own destiny from here. The Browns, Bengals, both 3-8, essentially eliminated at this point. They would have to be spotless the rest of the way and hope that the Ravens and Steelers both slip up. I think the Steelers have a little bit harder schedule. And it's a two-way race, Ravens or Steelers. They both play 2 good opponents that aren't from their division the rest of the way. The Ravens play the Patriots and the Packers. The Steelers play the Bills and the Lions. They play each other twice. And so I think pretty much this division is going to come down to how do you do when you play each other in the head-to-head. That's probably going to be enough to decide the division. I don't think either team is very good right now. We just watched the Ravens struggle against Tyrod Taylor and the New York Jets. It took a comeback late in that game for them to ultimately advance to 6-5. The Steelers have been crumbling, going the opposite direction right now. To Ravens' credit, they're on a 5-game win streak. They've got more momentum than Pittsburgh. Ravens have a plus 14 point differential, Steelers plus 11. They're just kind of 2 average teams, but which one do you think comes away in the end?
I think the default answer would be Baltimore, just because they are playing better. And we should talk about their defense. Their defense has been pretty incredible over the last 2 months. Even a game that they lost to the Rams, they only gave up 17 points, and the offense did nothing in that game. They're really starting to come along on that side of the ball. So I think that's what's encouraging, is that if the offense can get back to the levels that we saw like in 2023, 2024, this could be a very dangerous playoff team. But I mean, Tommy, you watched that Jets game. Like there was no juice in that one. They scored 3 points at home against the Jets in the first half. And the only reason they put up points in the second half is because they had great field position off turnovers. It's been a struggle. And I think the big part of it is that Lamar Jackson just isn't 100% healthy. Like he just has no explosiveness. And you wonder, with the Ravens playing all of these big games coming up, including a game on Thursday against the Bengals, is he going to get healthier? Or is this a thing where you're just going to have to kind of grind through the season and hope that you're able to make it to the playoffs? I think the issue is that Pittsburgh is so wildly inconsistent week in and week out. And by inconsistent, I mean some games the defense, like against Indianapolis, looked dominant. I mean, they get a bunch of turnovers and they're flying around and they're creating a bunch of pressures. And then there's games against Chicago where outside of one TJ Watt strip sack, I mean, they get almost no pressure on Caleb Williams. And the Bears were able to move the ball up and down the field. I don't trust either of these teams. I guess I would take the Ravens, but I don't feel great about it.
I trust the Ravens a whole lot more. I really do. It pains me to say that, but even with an ailing Lamar Jackson, if he does get healthy, this team could potentially be sneaky, because you talked about the defense playing much better. They've won each of their last 5 games, Marcus, by 2 to 3 scores each, albeit those wins came against the Bears, Dolphins, Vikings, Browns, Jets. So not exactly the cream of the crop there. But the defense is playing better, and that's something that I didn't think we'd be saying this year after watching how the defense has kind of taken a tailspin the last 2 years. It's been all offense. Now the narrative's kind of flipping. But I think if Lamar can kind of get back to form, they certainly stand a better chance. I think their schedule is slightly easier moving forward. They do have 2 games against the Bengals, and those games, based on strength of schedule, isn't very good because the Bengals are 3-8. But a Joe Burrow-led Bengals
much different.
could potentially swing one of those games, maybe even both. Maybe both. I kind of doubt it. I think the Ravens get at least one. But if they were to swing both, that's a huge advantage in Pittsburgh's favor, who got to avoid Joe Burrow and Trey Hendrickson the first 2 times that they met.
Well,
so that could be the difference.
I know that we are saying this is really a 2-team race between the Steelers and the Ravens, because it really is. But imagine the situation or the scenario that you just laid out where the Bengals beat the Ravens this week. All of a sudden, I mean, they've already got a win over Pittsburgh. If you win the game over Baltimore, you suddenly have 4 wins in the division. And you're not, I mean, it's
the best you can hope for is a tie, though. When you have 8 wins, you're talking about the Bengals, the best you can hope for is to tie and then win the tiebreaker. So.
Is there, I guess my question to you is there a chance that the division winner in the AFC North has 8 wins?
No, I don't think there is, because that means that the Steelers and the Ravens both only get 2 wins or less the rest of the way. And I think that it's going to be 9. I think that 9 is the magic number. I think that 8 is just too unlikely. However, if you were to do 9, let's say the Bengals, they win the rest of the way, they would have the division tiebreaker at that. But I think that's the only way that happens. You have to win out, essentially. And I think that they would. I think that I'd have to go check on that. They certainly would over the Ravens, over the Steelers. The Steelers have split with them. Probably. It's unlikely.
Here's the thing with again, it's just wild to even talk about, but let's say the Bengals were to beat the Ravens twice, and Joe Burrow's had a lot of success against this Ravens team. The rest of their schedule, Tommy, is pretty easy. Dolphins, Cardinals, Browns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's manageable.
This is why it was such a big deal that they lost some of these close games, like against the Jets. They lost a close game against the Bears. They lost it last week against the against the Patriots. If you just win one of those games, and you are back in this, but no, it's going to come down to the Steelers and the Ravens. And I almost don't see a scenario where that final game of the season, Pittsburgh home against Baltimore, doesn't decide who wins the division. And actually, there's a funny scenario that could potentially play out where if the Ravens were to win a lot of these games coming up, you could potentially have that game decide whether the Ravens are the 4 seed or the 5 seed. We'll see. It's gonna be a lot of fun for people that aren't rooting for the Ravens or the Steelers to see how this plays out.
And while we're on, let's talk about this next, Marcus. Is it smart to bring Joe Burrow back? I mean, we just talked about if these games go the other way. The Bengals had a chance. They had a chance this week. And I think that we're looking at a very different situation had that game gone the other way. So this is what Cincinnati has done as of late. 4 straight losses. The Patriots game, they lost by 1 score. If that game goes the other way, I think that now sitting at, if you were at 4-7 compared to 3-8, there's so much more incentive to rush him back to the field. 3-8, you're such a long shot. You're not technically eliminated, but I mean, your chances are so slim right now.
Well, and go back to the Jets game. They had a 14-point lead with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You win that game, all of a sudden you're back into it. But is it smart for Joe Burrow to play this season for the Bengals? Probably not. But at the same time, if Burrow wants to play, Burrow should play. He's missed so much time over the last couple of years with injuries. He's probably just dying to get in there and shake off some of the rust. And there's part of it too, like having a healthy Joe Burrow playing in these games just brings, some new energy to the Bengals. And I think they're in just kind of the player development stage of the season where you want to see what does it look like when Burrow's out there. Is Andre Joseph somebody that we can trust as our wide receiver 3? What's the offensive line look like with Burrow out there? Can we play some better football? And I think this is a lost season for Cincinnati. But if you can play, good football over the next 6 games and go 3-3 and upset the Ravens once or, maybe twice, it gives you some momentum going into the offseason. It's risky because whenever you put your franchise quarterback out there who's very injury prone in a lost season, there's always going to be some questions. But I also like watching Joe Burrow play football, and I'm sure Joe Burrow misses playing it. So I get it.
Oh, yeah. No, we all do for sure. It's just you wish that a quarterback, and it's unfortunate because a quarterback as good as him, there should always be something to play for. And unfortunately, because he's been so injured, so banged up over the years, Oftentimes when you're Cincinnati, there's really not. And we've seen this team get off to terribly slow starts in the past. It's just an unfortunate situation that several of his best years, the prime of his career, has been wasted because of these injuries. Not to say that even if he was back and healthy, I mean, the defense is still a disaster. It's basically the Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase show. Like, they need more talent still. I think it's risky bringing him back, but I 100% understand the sentiment. If you're the Bengals, you want to sell tickets. If you're fans, you want to watch your franchise quarterback play football, add to his career resume, all that kind of stuff. We'll see if there's any chance from here. Bengals got to be spotless. If they are, there's at least a glimmer of hope, an outside chance they can do something. Well, very unlikely, though.
And this is what they did last year, though. Remember, they had to win all of these games at the end of last year just to give themselves a chance to make the postseason. Now, they ultimately didn't do that, but they did finish with a 9-8 record. Mm-hmm. They beat the Steelers in Week 18, and that gave them an outside chance of making the playoffs. It's not like they haven't done this in the past, and this is a very favorable schedule for them. Again, their season kind of comes down to this game against the Ravens on Thanksgiving. But at the very least, Tommy, it's a lot more fun to watch Lamar Jackson going up against Joe Burrow than it is Joe Flacco.
That pick six from Joe Flacco is so bad. It's
awful.
All right. From the highs, the lows, the heartbreaks, the headlines, everything in between. This is Stacking the Box, your source for NFL talk, powered by fansided.com and the voices at Fansided. Make sure you check out fansided.com for all of our written work as well. All right. Let's talk about Shedeur Sanders here, Marcus. We were pretty hard on him last week because when he was thrust into the game, Dillon Gabriel injured. I mean, it was so bad. What did he go? 4 of 16 and just took a lot of dumb sacks. And I mean, we talked about him playing like he's a great athlete, but just can't escape the pocket very well. This game, I'm still not impressed. I'm still not impressed at all. Now, let's start with the good. I think Shedeur had a couple of really nice passes. And if you were just to watch him on highlights, you'd say, oh, wow, look at that. He made a couple really nice plays. The throwing on the run down the field, the 66-yard, or not, that was the 52-yarder to Isaiah Bond in perfect stride. That's a big-time NFL throw right there. However, he did get a 66-yarder to Isaiah Bond. There was just a screen pass. Bond did the rest of the work after the catch. The throw to Jerry Jeudy was nice as well. Jeudy ended up fumbling the football. Now, the Browns got a win on the road. It was against the Raiders, whatever. If you take away the 3 passes in this game, the pass to the blown coverage to Jeudy, the 66-yard screen pass to Dylan Sampson, and the 52-yard bomb to Isaiah Bond, then Shedeur has 52 yards passing in this game. The rest of his game just isn't good. He's not consistent, at least early in his NFL career. 11 of 20. Did end up averaging 10.5 yards an attempt because of that, but just hardly anything going for them outside of those 3 plays in the entire game.
Yeah, and this is the difference between Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel, who was the starters. Gabriel is really good at taking the layups and what the defense gives you and getting a lot of these, 5, 6, 7-yard completions, but you're just lacking the big plays. And unfortunately, with Cleveland's offense right now, they are not talented enough to put together these 12, 13 play drives where you can kind of nickel and dime defenses down the field. So you need big plays. And that's why I think Kevin Stefanski ultimately went with Shedeur, is because you can be awful in the rest of the game, but if you hit 3 big plays, that might be enough to win games with their defense. And I think, Tommy, the other part of it is I like Dillon Gabriel, but I think Dillon Gabriel is going to be a backup quarterback in the NFL, and I think he's going to play for a long time. We'll see about Shedeur, but I think there is an energy and a vibe around Shedeur that gets the fan base and the team excited. And when you're a 3-8 football team that's kind of going through the grind of the NFL season, sometimes you need something like that just to help pass the weeks, right? And I think at least this week against the 49ers, with Shedeur at quarterback, at least there's some juice to this game. Whereas if it was Dillon Gabriel, I don't think anybody cares about this game. And that's why I think Kevin Stefanski ultimately went and made the decision, because now there's a little bit of energy to this team that they just didn't have before.
Yeah, in terms of Gabriel, it's hard to get excited about a 25-year-old, 5'10", lefty quarterback that doesn't necessarily have the best skill set to work with. I questioned the selection in the third round. I thought he should have been more a fifth, sixth round type of guy. Career backup. I think that is pretty evident based on his skill set. Shedeur, maybe we thought something we could be there, but I mean, we're talking about a second rough performance. He had an 8.7 QBR in this game. Backtracking for a second, it was 63 completed air yards before the catch in this game. But in his first two games, Marcus, when he played the second half against Baltimore and this game against the Raiders, Shedeur is now averaging on the season just 2.6 completed air yards per pass attempt. I mean, his average completion is barely traveling 2.5 yards past.
That's why I'm shocked that Mike Tomlin didn't draft him. It sounds like the perfect Mike Tomlin quarterback.
The thing though is Shedeur is trying to take shots. It's just when you average it out, like all the bad plays and incomplete throws with the big plays, it's still not very good.
No,
very inconsistent so far. We'll see what he offers this coming week as he's named the starter against 49ers. I don't have high hopes for that game. I think that one has the makings of potential blowout there, although Cleveland's defense is good.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only thing I'd say is the last time that San Francisco came into Cleveland, that Jim Schwartz defense absolutely dominated. Mm-hmm. And if we've seen anything before, the 49ers on a short week traveling to Cleveland, don't be surprised if this is a really low-scoring game where Shedeur, all he's got to do is make 2 or 3 big plays down the field to keep them in it. Not saying that they're going to win, but that's a much tougher matchup for the 49ers than anybody anticipates.
Marcus, let's keep it right here with this 49ers talk for a second, because this is going to be a little controversial to some people. Brock Purdy or Mac Jones? Because I think there's a case to be made, at least a case to be made, that former first-round pick, 15th overall pick by the Patriots, who bounced around, looked awful in the Jaguars, and now with Kyle Shanahan, looked pretty good before sitting back on the bench for Brock Purdy. Purdy was bad in this game. He was bad. He threw 3 picks, probably should have thrown 5. Some of them were just completely telegraphed. I don't know what's going on with him. Has he always been this player? Has he regressed a little bit? Is sitting out all that time, is that coming back to hurt him a little bit? How big do you think the gap is, the talent gap between Brock Purdy and Mac Jones? They're different types of quarterbacks. I think that Jones is better in structure and he's more accurate, but Purdy is better when he can escape the pocket, make some stuff happen downfield. What would be your preference if you're the 49ers?
So I was on the phone with a current NFL coach during that game last night, and there was a throw on third down that Purdy had that he actually completed. He threw the ball on the outside on a comeback route for like 8 yards, but the ball absolutely died in the air, and the receiver had to dive back to catch it, and there's just no chance that the receiver was going to be able to make the catch, turn upfield. And it's those type of plays from Purdy that you see the lack of arm strength. And I know we talk about arm strength being overrated and all that kind of stuff, but on 2 of his interceptions, it was a lack of arm talent. He just doesn't have the zip to get it there. And it's not like Mac Jones has a great arm because it's very average, but I think you can see the difference between the two. And there's a lot of times where you do need that arm strength to fit the ball into tight windows. I think one of the big storylines we haven't talked about is Brock Purdy was unbelievable in that, the end of the 2022 season, and then for most of the 2023 season. But Tommy, from that Ravens game, remember that Ravens game on Christmas of 2023, where they just got smoked in that game. In Brock Purdy's last 21 games since that game, he has 23 interceptions. His yards per attempt are way down from what we saw before. His passer rating is down to 92. He's still performing at a decent level, but it's no super elite, quarterback, numbers that we saw in the past with Purdy. He's kind of regressing down towards, an average NFL starter. And we know how easy it is for quarterbacks to play in this offense. We saw Mac Jones, who has been incredibly beat up this year, put up huge numbers with Kyle Shanahan, with no receivers, with offensive linemen out. The answer is still to go with Purdy, but is there a $50 million gap between the two of them? Absolutely not.
There definitely isn't. And with the 49ers being at home in this game, their receivers are healthier than they were in many cases with Mac Jones. They were playing the Carolina Panthers, and their defense 32 pass attempts for Purdy, 193 yards. It's 6.0 per attempt, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 49 QBR, 58.5 passer rating. And I do think that probably my favorite trait about both of these quarterbacks, Purdy and Jones, is that they're both very willing to throw the ball over the middle of the field. They do it in a different way. Jones is very much in rhythm, and he's pretty accurate with it. Whereas Purdy is kind of more extending the play. I'm going to read high to low, look for bigger plays down the field. And sometimes that works really well, and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that Purdy's accuracy is just what we call general accuracy. He puts it in the vicinity. It's not pinpoint. It's not thread the needle between two guys. Typically not. I think that he's best when he's rolling out of the pocket and making plays. So different types of quarterbacks. Which one does Shanahan like more? Well, we know that Shanahan
Mac Jones.
likes Mac Jones. Jones is the guy that he wanted to trade up for all those 3 first-round picks back then.
So here's the other thing that's kind of concerning. In Purdy's last 5 starts, he's had 2 or more interceptions in 4 of them. And this is, Purdy did a really good job early in his career of not turning the ball over, but now he is. And now it's becoming an issue. If Carolina didn't have, an interception on the 1-yard line, or if they, I think they had 3 turnovers in this game, they probably lose because of how poorly Brock Purdy played. The 49ers schedule is very easy the rest of the way, so they're going to be able to stack some of these wins up. But I think the thing is, when you play better defenses, is he going to be able to avoid not turning the ball over? He's going to be efficient on the plays where he completes passes because everybody is with Kyle Shanahan. It's just, can you avoid those back-breaking turnovers? And again, in the last 5 games, he has not been able to. So we'll see.
If you love football, this is the right place. Stack in the Box, powered by Fansided, where fans show their passion every day. All right, Marcus, one more for you here. JJ McCarthy. Oh, my goodness. At first, Vikings fan, he was all the rage. He comes in. There's the iconic, his serious face there in the locker room after the big win. Since then, it's like, what's happening? Is this a quarterback? We compared him to Anthony Richardson last time in terms of his trajectory and what he's offering the team right now. In this game, Marcus, 19 pass attempts for 87 yards. That's 4.6 yards per attempt, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks, sacked 5 times, should have almost had 2 safeties, almost taken 2 safeties in this game, a 17.9 QBR, 34 passer rating. And it's not just one sample now. We've got multiple games of McCarthy under 200 yards, under 55% completion. It's just been really poor overall. Can they continue going on with McCarthy? Is he already finished?
Well, he's dealing with a concussion this week, so he's likely going to be out. We'll probably see him a couple more games, but Tommy, you and I are the belief that for the most part, you kind of know right away with these quarterbacks. And here's a stat from Danny Heifetz on JJ McCarthy that's pretty telling. Since 2000, JJ McCarthy ranks 851st out of 852 quarterbacks in EPA per dropback. That's bad. That's not very good. Think about all the awful quarterbacks that we've seen in our lifetime. We've been watching football for over 25 years now. Think of all of the awful, awful quarterbacks, and JJ McCarthy has been worse than that. And that's with Kevin O'Connell, who we think is one of the best play callers in the league. That's with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, one of the best wide receiver pairings in the league. And he's been that awful. It's crazy that Carson Wentz looks like he's a significant upgrade over JJ McCarthy. Maybe he turns it around, but at this point, I don't know how you go into 2026 with JJ McCarthy as your starting quarterback.
If the Colts couldn't justify doing it with Richardson, who I think was more talented, physically gifted at least, it's hard to make the case for McCarthy. This has just been a really, really bad sample. They need to ride with him the rest of the way when he's back from concussion protocol and healthy to go. But I'll throw one more stat out here for you on McCarthy. 24.4% bad throw percentage. A quarter of his passes are deemed as just flat out bad throws. And when you watch him play, you can understand why. He does not look like an NFL quarterback right now. He looks like kind of just a backyard football player who's trying to scramble around and make something happen out of nothing. He needs to be able to operate from structure. It just hasn't been there for him at all. All right. This is the Stack in the Box show. We premiere every Tuesday evening. Be sure to check it out. You can follow Marcus Mosher on X. You can follow me at Marcus_Mosher. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jaggi. You can download Stacking the Box podcast wherever you get your podcast. Also check us out on YouTube. You can follow my written content on stillcurtain.com, Marcus's written work on the Fansided NFL Network, and be sure to check out fansided.com for all your daily sports news and opinions. And thanks again for listening to Stacking the Box.